Now, I read from my outline at this point. At this point, the disciples received divine, eternal resurrection life. But they still lacked direction for ministry. It wasn't many days later that Peter went out fishing again. He still didn't know what God's destiny for him was. And they made no impact on the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem just went on the same. They were in the temple praising and blessing God every day, but it didn't change anything in Jerusalem. And Jesus told them after this experience, in the period between this Resurrection Sunday and the time of his ascension, Jesus told them, there is more to receive. Don't believe that you've got it all. When I meet people who tell me I've got it all when I was saved, I say, if you've got it all, let's see it. Where is it? It should show. I want to read two passages in which Jesus made it very clear that there was more to receive than they had received through new birth. Wonderful though that was. Luke 24, verses 48 and 49. And bear in mind, these words were spoken shortly before his ascension, something like 40 days after his resurrection. And you are witnesses of these things. He's talking to the disciples. Behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but tarry in the city of Jerusalem until you are endued with power from on high. So he said, there's more to come. The Father's promise you haven't yet received. But when you receive it, you'll receive power to be my witnesses. And then again in Acts chapter 1, verses 4 and 5. Being assembled together with them, he commanded them not to depart from Jerusalem, but to wait for the promise of the Father, which he said, you have heard from me. And then he explains what the promise of the Father is. For John truly baptized with water, but you shall be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days from now. That's the promise of the Father. Somebody has estimated there are 7,000 promises of God in the Bible, but this is the promise of the Father for his children. You shall be baptized with the Holy Spirit. And then he explained the purpose in verse 8. He said, you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the end of the earth. So that's the promise, to be baptized with the Holy Spirit, and the purpose, to receive power to be witnesses. That had not yet happened. This was approximately 40 days after the Resurrection Sunday experience, where they had received the Holy Spirit in new birth. But Jesus said there's another experience coming in which you will be endued with power to be my witnesses. And almost all commentators in the Bible from every background agree that that second promise was fulfilled on the day of Pentecost. So we turn now to Acts chapter 2, and we read some verses that describe the fulfillment of the promise. First of all, we'll read the first 4 verses of Acts 2. Now, we're talking now about Pentecost Sunday. Now, when the day of Pentecost had fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. Then there appeared to them divided tongues as of fire, and one sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance, or gave them to speak. Now this is the fulfillment of the promise. And I want to point out to you 3 successive phases of this experience. First of all, the Holy Spirit descended like a mighty wind and filled all the house where they were sitting. Bear in mind that linguistically the word baptize means to dip or to immerse. This is an unquestionable linguistic fact. So every baptism has to be an immersion. Baptism in water is an immersion in water. But baptism in the Holy Spirit is an immersion in the Holy Spirit. You see, Baptism in water, you go down into the water and come up out of it. But baptism in the Holy Spirit, the Spirit comes down upon you and immerses you from above. You can compare going down into a swimming pool, being baptized, or walking under Niagara Falls. Each of them is an immersion. But the second one is an immersion from above. I remember the first time I watched Niagara Falls, I said to myself, you couldn't be half a second under that without being immersed. But it's not an immersion by which you go down into, it's an immersion by which it comes down over you. And so every one of the disciples in that upper room at that point was immersed in the Holy Spirit descending upon them from above. It says it filled all the place where they were sitting. So they were totally immersed in the Holy Spirit. Phase 1. Phase 2, it says they were all filled with the Holy Spirit. Each one received the Holy Spirit within to the point of being filled. And phase 3 is what I call the overflow. They began to speak with new languages as the Spirit gave them to speak. In Matthew 12:34, Jesus says this, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. In other words, when your heart is filled to overflowing, the overflow will take place through your mouth in speech. So this is scriptural. When they were filled and could contain no more, the overflow took place. They began to speak as the Spirit gave them to speak. Those are the 3 phases of that experience. Immersion from above, infilling, and outflow. Now, theoretically, you can stop at any point. They could have been immersed but not filled. Or they could have been immersed and filled but not have any overflow. But my question is, why settle for less than the best? I often preach to Catholics. And when I do so, I always remind them that their 2 favorite figures in the New Testament, Mary and Peter, both received it that way. And I say to them, if that's how they received it, why should you receive it any other way? And when I've put it that way, I've seen hundreds of Catholics receive the Holy Spirit in the next few minutes.